Hey guys, welcome into this segment from our full-length The Onside Kick podcast. In order to get the full podcast, go down to the description, go to Blog Talk Radio / The Onside Kick to download the full thing. Enjoy, everybody.
This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
Welcome in again to another edition of the Onside Kick here on Most Valuable Podcasts. If you're listening on YouTube, thank you for joining us today. If you are listening to us via Blog Talk Radio, thanks for the download. I hope you enjoy the full-length podcast. But Mark, we've got a jam-packed show. This is unique. I thought we were just doing this the other night, Mark. We were just here the other night.
Feels
and now
like
we're
it.
back for our normal weekly podcast that's here. No draft today.
No, which is maybe surprising to some people because you know how excited Ricky and I are for the NFL draft. But there's a lot of things that are going to happen first, which we probably got to talk about. Things, such as coaching changes, playoffs, a lot of things to talk about.
Well, and today on the show, we're going to be looking at some coaching changes and some of that playoff situations as we'll look at the Rams situation. Could Jon Gruden become the next Rams head coach? Blake Bortles, what does his future hold now that Gus Bradley is fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars? And then we're going to look in on the Houston Texans, and can Tom Savage really bring this team to the playoffs as their starting quarterback? But let's get right into that first topic. The Rams, Jon Gruden. There are rumors out there. There's a article on Fox Sports, Mark, where the Rams are apparently having Jon Gruden as the top candidate for their coaching vacancy with the Rams. I'm just going to ask you this. Jon Gruden to the Rams. Can you see that headline in our future?
Well, I think it kind of makes sense in the sense of it's a big personality. You're in LA, and even though we want to say America's team is the Dallas Cowboys, or you want to talk about how popular the Green Bay Packers are all over the place, there's a real opportunity right now for the NFL to kind of crown the Rams as the NFL team in LA, the gold standard in a way. To bring in such a high-profile head coach, that's really what they need. For LA, I don't think that you can afford to bring in some assistant. You can't afford to bring in some coordinator somewhere, some college coach. It has to be a splash because you're in LA. And Jon Gruden is that splash. I do want to say one thing, though. It's one thing to have Jon Gruden be the focus, but does Jon Gruden actually want to get out of his comfy position that he's in and have to, once again, put it all on the line?
Well, and that's the big thing. This isn't if the Rams are set to hire Jon Gruden, it's going to get done. This right now, where we are at, is they are just set to make Jon Gruden the focal point. And the quote that I have here from Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports, and this is via Fox Sports, it says, and I quote, "The Los Angeles Rams are moving towards a meeting with Jon Gruden about the team's head coaching vacancy. Multiple sources with knowledge of the Rams coaching search have told Yahoo Sports. The sources indicate Gruden has become the focal point, like you said, Mark, on the Rams list of candidates, but that other candidates could also come into play, notably David Shaw from Stanford and Sean Payton, who is currently with the New Orleans Saints." And to me, I look at this and I say, not only is Jon Gruden a guy who, to me, there are two guys which would be perfect for this job. One is Jon Gruden, the other is Sean Payton. Those are the two guys you go and get. I know everyone's going to throw David Shaw's name out there, but let's be honest. He ain't leaving Stanford for some team where it's kind of iffy how good this team is going to be. It would be different if they had Andrew Luck. If they had Andrew Luck, then I could see it. If they drafted a Christian McCaffrey, then I could see it. You have that Stanford tie to try to pull David Shaw out of his little Stanford hole. To me, it's you got to get Peyton or you've got to get Jon Gruden, because these are the two guys that, A, have that veteran experience as a head coach. I know that there are people out there that are saying, well, Jon Gruden, he's been out of the game for too long, hasn't coached since 2008. He's been sitting up in the booth for 8 years. Let's be honest. Jon Gruden's a smart guy. He still knows what's going on. He's paying attention to the game of football. He could step in there and he can show you a thing or two. That's what Jon Gruden can do. I say Jon Gruden because they can work with Jared Goff. That's the last thing I was going to say.
Well, I want to mention with this what the big requirement is in my eyes. The big requirement to be the head coach of the LA Rams is your personality. You know, you can't have in LA
a dull coach.
Yeah, you can't have somebody that doesn't want to, show off in the press conferences, who doesn't want to make a name, a splash, something like that. This is not going to happen, but that's why you would think like a guy like Rex Ryan is a good fit because he's going to get fired in Buffalo because he's got the personality.
But
like
he's not going to produce on the field, yeah.
It's not going to happen, but that type of personality is nice. I do think of a guy like McDaniels, of course, in New England, just because of he's a younger guy. He's got the looks. He feels like he would fit in that place. He's got the personality too. But once again, like I said, you can't have just offensive coordinator. You can't do something like that. You got to make that splash. Sean Payton's a good combination there. Jon Gruden's one too. I just don't, in my eyes, I don't see a reason for Jon Gruden to leave the cushy job that he has now. I know that, what is it, Sean McDermott, or Sean McDonough, whatever his name is.
McDermott with the Panthers? Is that who you're thinking about?
No, Sean, whoever he's doing Monday Night Football with now.
Oh, Mike Donahue.
It's not the same. He misses Tirico, of course. But it's just, here's the thing. I know you're bored. I know you don't like your play-by-play commentator that you have. But it's a nice, cushy job. Keep the nice, cushy job because you don't need to prove anything to us anymore. And if anything, you're actually just giving the opportunity to kind of harm your legacy. So he's remembered pretty fondly in Oakland, even though, didn't win a Super Bowl or anything like that. But he got you some success. Moves over to Tampa.
And I'm going to cut you off. It was Sean Donahue.
Sean Donahue. Moves over to Tampa. Basically takes Tony Dungy's team and gets a Super Bowl out of it. And then the team wasn't terrible after that, but not really success anymore. Jon Gruden, on his own, didn't really have that successful of a team. So to put him in this position with this team that, sure, they've got a good defensive front, and they have some guys who should be good on paper, but he's got to build this team all over again. And that's something that Jon Gruden doesn't necessarily do. He's not the team builder. He is the motivator. He's the guy who takes an already good team and pushes them forward just a little bit more.
Well, and I will say that is probably a point where Sean Payton might be a little bit of a lean in that department, where Sean Payton was there for, I'm going to call it kind of a rebuild and building that Saints team. I know, of course, when you get Drew Brees, you get him traded over from the Chargers and get a huge steal in Drew Brees because no one expected Drew with his shoulder situation to be who he was after he left the Chargers, after they basically replaced him with Phillip Rivers. The one thing I want to go back to that you mentioned was about the personality. And that's why with me, Jon Gruden is the guy because he's not going to be afraid to talk to that media, and B, he's not going to be afraid to light a fire under that team's ass. And I mean, when you look at a young team, the one thing that I think of most is young players sometimes do need that motivator, that guy that's going to light that fire under their rear ends. And the point that you made, it's LA. You can't have a dull coach in that city. I think of the coaches that are right now in LA. Just think of the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Kings. Two of those coaches, Doc Rivers, a fiery coach, Luke Walton, who, he's a young guy, but he's a guy that's even in press conferences, you're seeing a little bit of fire, where he made a comment earlier in the season where he's like, you know what, the Spurs and us are the only teams to beat the Warriors. I think they're a little scared of us. And somebody laughed in the reporter side, and he goes, oh, you think that's funny? he's a guy that even has that little bit of he's not a dull coach. The only one that seems dull, but he's not really that dull, is Daryl Sutter, the head coach of the LA Kings. But that's just because you see him sitting there on the bench and he's got that stone cold face and you don't really know what he's thinking. But in his press conferences, he's not even a dull coach. So in LA, you need that guy who's not just going to sit back and go, and that's not going to be Jon Gruden. Plus, another thing I want to throw out there is, like you mentioned, Mike Tirico's gone. Monday Night Football, to me at least, is not as appealing as it once was. Think about when we were kids, Mark. What was the one game that everybody waited for? What did the commercials used to say? Kind of still do, but you're like, whatever. What did it come down to? Everything comes down to what, Mark?
It comes down to your Monday Night Football.
Monday night. Fantasy football. Ooh, what's the Monday night game? Who's got that? Now we've got so many games to where
Thursday ruined it.
Well, not just Thursday.
Thursday ruined everything.
The Thursday night game, I'll be honest, most of them are duds, but on average, it's a pretty decent football game. We've had good Thursday night games.
We've had like two.
So, to me,
there's been literally two good football games.
But even with how the schedule is now, the games that are ahead of Monday Night Football, in my mind, you get there's usually one early afternoon game that's a rock star game. There's usually one late afternoon game that's a rock star game. The Patriot and Steeler game is usually must-watch games. I put those four alone above the Monday night game. It's just the Monday night game has lost steam in my mind. It's no longer the primetime event for the football weekend. And you could say, well, it's kind of with the oversaturation that we have of football games, like you said, Thursday night. Now, like this last week, they added a Saturday night game.
Yep.
And it's just like, with this oversaturation, I wouldn't be surprised if Jon Gruden's sitting there going, I lost my buddy. Sean Donahue's not bad, but he's not Mike Tirico. And you know what? Monday night isn't as high profile as it once was when I came onto this.
I just think that, I don't know, it's leaving a lot because he has such a presence on ESPN. He's such a part of ESPN. So I don't know.
And he can sit there and be his own character.
Yeah, he can do whatever they want. I mean, he literally talks nonsense half the time up there, and they love it. We all eat it up because he's the only.
Well, that's what ESPN does. I mean, have you seen First Take?
But he's the only good personality left in announcing. I don't consider Collinsworth to be a good personality. But the most important question here for me is not really why Jon Gruden should go to the Rams. It's more of the question is, of all the places you're going to give up your cushy job for, you're going to go to the LA Rams? Do people want to be attached to Jared Goff? Because you don't have a choice in this case. This isn't Jacksonville, which we'll talk about soon, where you can get rid of Blake Bortles if you want. You have permission to do that. No, you are stuck with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is your guy. The team traded so much to get him. You're stuck. And if he fails, you're fired. Your job is dependent on making Jared Goff not a competent quarterback, a quarterback worthy of the number 1 overall pick.
Well, and I am not just going, I'm going to take your point and add one more on to it. You're not just, with the Rams, you're stuck with Jared Goff. And some people would say, guys, you're saying that like it's a negative. Jared Goff is a young quarterback that you can help groom. In Gruden's case, could be a positive because he's a guy that has done his quarterback camps. He scouted Jared Goff, was able to talk to him, was able to work with him. He's worked with the young quarterbacks in this quarterback camp. But the one thing, you can't get rid of the quarterback in this situation. You know who else you can't get rid of?
Todd Gurley.
The GM. You can't get rid. I'm going to say you can't get rid of the higher ups.
No.
Where it's kind of like, I'm going to use a situation where I heard, I want to say it was on ESPN, where they're like, oh, well, the perfect job for Jim Harbaugh would be, oh, don't take the Rams job, wait around, Colts job opens up, boom, take that. You get to work with Andrew Luck.
Yeah, but then you got to work with Jim Irsay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You got to work with Jim Irsay there. in this case, it's can you work with Stan Kroenke? Is he the guy you really want to work with? So that's another part that Jon Gruden would have to think about. Not just what's on the field, but, hey, is Kroenke a guy that I can work with and see myself with? Or is it just going to be a situation where they bring me in for the big name, and it's like what Jeff Fisher said when they asked him about the job, about him fired, and he said, oh, well, I guess it was the Rams never saw me as the coach to see the new stadium. I was just the guy that was supposed to get them to it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it definitely makes sense in that case. And to me, it's not that the LA Rams are this disaster, terrible team. It's just that if you're some young coach who's going to have the opportunity, this makes sense. If you're one of these guys who's already done something successful, I don't see this being the place. It's not like you're walking in because Mike McCarthy somehow got fired in Green Bay and now you get to work with Aaron Rodgers. It's not that situation where it's guaranteed gold. This is something where you got to put the work in. And I don't know, maybe Jon Gruden's bored. Maybe he wants to put the work in. Even Sean Payton, I think it's a lot of work for a guy who is, had his success already. It's just, I don't know if someone wants to put the work in. And it's like Todd Gurley's a good running back, but he's having so much trouble behind this offensive line. And this defense, sure, the front seven is good. That's about it. They give up a shit ton of points. Well, I guess it's not a terrible amount of points, but they definitely give up a lot of points. They don't score any points. Your best wide receiver is Kenny Britt.
Here's another thing I want to throw out there, and why this is on the side of the Rams, why they need to get either Jon Gruden or Sean Payton. If they got either one of those two head coaches, free agents might actually want to go to L.A. Because you sit this way. First off, it's L.A. People want to go there anyways. Like, you don't have to worry about – it's not like Chicago and players have to – like Brian Urlacher on Waddle and Sylvie last week, they were kind of asking him about playing late in the season. He said, I hated it. Yep. It was cold. You don't want to play. The field sucks. And it's not like you're going to Chicago where it's frigid cold over here and it's below zero.
It was like -6 the other day.
You're going to, let's put it this way. It was 19 degrees today when I got out of work. And I thought, great. Oh, this is good. Feels brisk out. Feels nice.
I don't even need this jacket.
Man, it doesn't hurt to breathe. Isn't that a good thing? But it's L.A. People are going to want to go there anyways, but then you get a high market name like Jon Gruden or Sean Payton, just help sell your program even more and bring in free agents to help this young team get better.
Potentially, yeah. Everything about it makes sense for the L.A. Rams.
It's all Jon Gruden.
It's Jon Gruden. I don't buy it for Jon Gruden. To me, it's like you've already won your Super Bowl. Why do you want to have to prove yourself again? Because you come in, people are going to have really high expectations about what Jon Gruden can do. And like I said, Jon Gruden won his Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's team. That wasn't Jon Gruden's team. When it was Jon Gruden's team, it was nowhere near as successful as it was when it was Tony Dungy's team.
I mean, they got to the wild card game twice.
Yeah. Congrats. You got to a wild card game.
And let's be honest, that last year that he was in Oakland, that team probably would have won the Super Bowl if it wasn't for the tuck game, for the tuck rule. Probably would have won the Super Bowl that year if it wasn't for that one call that changed the
football
whole
as we know it.
Landscape of football. But one point I did want to throw out about Jon Gruden in the past. So he was with Oakland from 98 to 2001. And I'm sorry for our listeners who might be like 18, 19, 20. You guys might not know these names, but I hope you do. I hope you've watched NFL films. Here were the list of his quarterbacks. He only had 4 total quarterbacks in his time with the Raiders. His first year, Jeff George started 7 games. Donald Hollis started 6. And Wade Wilson, not Deadpool, Wade Wilson, started 3 games. For the other 3 years, he had Rich Gannon start every single game. Rich Gannon came over from Kansas City at that time and started every single game for the Oakland Raiders under Gruden. Then he goes 2002 to 2008 with the Bucs. Here's the list of his quarterbacks. That first year, Brad Johnson 13, Rob Johnson 2, Sean King 1. 03, Brad Johnson. Then he had Brian Greasy Johnson and Chris Sims. Chris Sims, Brian Greasy, Bruce Gradkowski, Chris Sims, and Tim Rattay, then Jeff Garcia, Luke McCown, and then Jeff Garcia, Brian Greasy. Those were his quarterbacks that he had in the Buccaneers. What do you notice about 99, maybe all of those quarterbacks? Not young guys.
Nope.
Not high draft touted young guys like Jared Goff. Never had a young guy. I mean, yeah, you're probably sitting there going, well, Ricky, he had Rich Gannon kind of fall into his lap in Oakland. Of course they're not going to go out and draft one. Plus, at that time, Al Davis was still there, so of course they're going to take the fastest guy on the board with their first-round pick.
That's how it works, yeah.
That, to me, though, is another interesting thing. He's never worked with a young quarterback. Would he be able to? I say yes because of the quarterback camps, but in a season, it's different. Do you think that plays into it, that he's never had a young quarterback to work with?
I really don't think that is that big of a deal for him just because of the fact that the quarterback camps is something he's done so much now. And he's worked with a lot of these young guys. I mean, I do think there might be some value to saying that, like I said earlier, he doesn't necessarily want to build. He's not a team builder. He wants to work with something that's already established, such as a Rich Gannon. You know, getting someone who's already established, getting somebody who you know you can get some success out of, you know, that's something that's very, very valuable, of course. I just kind of feel that, could he do it? Yeah, I'm sure he could do it. I'm sure he could work with Jared Goff, the young quarterback who will be going into his second year. I don't doubt that he can do that. I just don't think it's what he wants to do because he's never really shown himself to be that guy.
And the one last thing that I'm going to bring up is, I know that it's different teams, different circumstances, but right now the Rams have statistically the worst offense in the NFL. They have the worst total yards of all 32 teams. They're only averaging 278.8 total yards per game and one of the lowest 14.1 points per game. In Jon Gruden's last year with Tampa Bay, he had an offense that averaged 341 yards per game and scored a total of 22.6. I mean, if you're looking at that going, hey, I'll take that over what we got now, then Jon Gruden's your guy. The big question is, will Jon Gruden think, hey, I can be the guy?
This is a place that he wants to be. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things where if it's not the Rams, he ain't coming back to coaching in my mind. But before we move on, is there anything we didn't touch with this, Mark?
No, not necessarily. I think that it's pretty much all there. But hey, maybe if Jon Gruden leaves, maybe we can get Tony Kornheiser back for Monday Night Football. That'd be fun.
And then he can do the Goodnight Canada at the end of every broadcast. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know down below what you guys think. Will Jon Gruden become the next head coach of the Rams? Is he the best option to become head coach of the Rams? What do you think? How does this play out? Let us know down below in the comment section. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that segment from the onside kick. If you think the fun stops there, you're wrong, because click the video right over here. What are you thinking? Come on, click it. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. Bye, everybody.